Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. It's good to have you with us. It's good to have Wendy back with us. You've been traveling, you've been sick, you've been this, that, and the other.
All of it. I was traveling sick, but I went to Gulf Shores, Alabama boy, it's pretty down there.
It is.
I didn't know they had such a beautiful stretch of beach down there.
Pristine, lovely. So what were you doing?
I was at a women's retreat,
yeah.
And it was life-changing. It was 25 women and the Holy Spirit, and we just had an amazing time with God and with each other. And
good for you.
Yeah,
well, we'll look forward to hearing more about it. Well, welcome back. Well, don't do that again. That's the warning from Russia to the United States, telling America not to launch another attack on Syria. That's a joke. But the Trump administration has made it clear it will take more military action in Syria if necessary.
The Secretary of State is in Moscow today, meeting with the Russian foreign minister and possibly with Vladimir Putin. Heather Sells has the story.
He's the first Trump cabinet official to visit Russia, but it's still unclear whether Russian President Putin will meet with Secretary of State Tillerson, and there's little hope of the two countries agreeing on Syria. The White House says it's confident that Syrian President Bashar Assad ordered a chemical attack on his people this month. And it says the Russians are trying to cover up the involvement of Assad, Moscow's closest ally in the region. President Trump is demanding that Russia withdraw its support for the Assad regime.
Frankly, Putin is backing a person that's truly an evil person. And I think it's very bad for Russia. I think it's very bad for mankind.
President Putin continues to deny that Assad's government directed the attack. Under President Obama, an agreement between the U.S. and Russia 4 years ago was supposed to eliminate Syria's chemical weapons. But clearly that didn't work. The U.S., meanwhile, is pressuring both Russia and Assad, asserting that his days are numbered.
It's clear to all of us that the reign of the Assad family is coming to an end.
Amidst all this, the White House is recovering from a brief firestorm on Tuesday. It started as an attempt by Press Secretary Sean Spicer to point the finger at Assad by comparing him to Adolf Hitler.
You had someone as despicable as Hitler who didn't even sink to using chemical weapons.
Hitler, of course, used gas chambers to kill millions of Jews. Spicer later apologized. Just how the U.S. continues to be involved in Syria is unclear. The UN ambassador Nikki Haley says the U.S. is prepared to do more, but at the same time, the president is making it clear
we're not going into Syria.
And Defense Secretary James Mattis is promising that despite growing tensions between the U.S. and Russia, the relationship will not, quote, spiral out of control. Heather Sells, CBN News.
Well, you know, you have to go back in history a little bit to understand what Syria is. Syria was a creation of the Allied powers after World War I, and they had spheres of influence. The Brits got certain areas, the French got certain areas. The French got Syria, and that's why in Syria they speak some French. They also got Lebanon, and they speak French in Lebanon. Okay, so now you have the same group, the same clan that ran Iraq is running Syria. They're called Alawites, but they only represent about 15% of the population. The majority, of course, are Sunni Muslims. Then there's some Shias. But the Alawites, because of the Assad family, have been very, very brutal. They have been hideous dictators. And this man's, Bashar Assad's father, Hafiz al-Assad, killed some people in a place called Homa. I mean, he just wiped them out. I mean, like 30,000 people dead. I mean, these guys were brutes. Now, this man, we all thought he'd been educated as a doctor in Europe, and you thought he'd taken on some Western characteristics. Instead of that, he's become a monster. And yes, he's got to go, but they only control 15% of the people. And what we've got to do, and really, is recognize the fact that there's some people in there who are Kurds. They deserve their own country. There needs to be a Kurdistan, independent, along with the Kurds in Iraq, the Kurds in Turkey, the Kurds in Syria. They deserve a homeland, but maybe not the Turks, but at least those other two. But that's going to happen. The Sunnis probably need to have some independence. Now, how they're going to set it up, we don't know. But what we're saying is that Syria, that came together after World War I, needs to be dismembered, and it needs to go back to the original tribal allegiances. That's what's got to be done. But whether the powers that be are going to pick up what's smart, I don't know. But they're going to be fighting otherwise. And we talk about Assad's got to go, but who's going to put in his place? Who would go in? We don't know. We had some potential candidates, but Obama did not help them, and now they are no longer available. So who do we have? Well, we may have some ISIS supporters, and that wouldn't be cool either. So it's a dilemma. So
it really is. I mean, you wonder if ISIS would be much worse than Assad at this point.
Yeah, it'll be worse, but not much. But Assad, you thought you had I mean, he's a doctor, for heaven's sakes. He's trained in Europe. I mean, you can't, a medicine man.
He looks civilized. He doesn't look the part of a monster, does he?
But his father was a monster. Hafiz al-Assad was a monster. I mean, he killed ruthlessly because only 15% of the population, and he had to maintain an iron grip or they'd throw him out. But now we're saying he's got to go, but to where and to whom? Well, here at home, the Trump administration and congressional Republicans are going forward with a plan to get the economy moving again with tax cuts. John Jessup has that.
And, Pat, President Trump needs the support of the conservative Republican House Freedom Caucus in Congress to get that tax plan passed into law. Now, that's the group that derailed the GOP health care plan to repeal and replace Obamacare. But now the leader of the Freedom Caucus tells CBN News he believes both tax reform and a new health care plan can be passed this year. David Brody brings us the story.
President Trump has his hands full dealing with both Democrats and the major news media. But on the legislative front, his fight has been with the Freedom Caucus. This group of seriously conservative lawmakers in the House banded together to prevent the president from claiming a victory on health care reform. But their leader, Mark Meadows, tells CBN News he believes a deal is still in sight.
I think there's some room for optimism because we want to get it done on behalf of the American people. And so failure is not an option. And so as we look at this, you know, the viewers that are tuned in right now, their main litmus test is going to be, did their premiums come down?
The latest reports indicate that the Freedom Caucus is very close to agreeing to a deal with the White House. The sticking point is figuring out just how many of those Obamacare insurance mandates that the states would be able to opt out of. A new health care vote could even happen over the congressional recess.
As we look at this recess, I think it's important to note that we may come back to vote on it.
As the fight over health care continues to be worked out here in Congress, Mark Meadows is going to have something else on his plate. It's called multitasking because the Freedom Caucus and Meadows are not just involved in health care. Get ready for the complicated issue of tax reform. The New York Times calls tax reform a Rubik's Cube because it can be so complicated. A.B. Stoddard is with Real Clear Politics.
There's a reason that tax reform never happens. Republicans kill their own bills. It's very controversial. All the lobbied interests come to the table and start hollering, and everyone has a stake. It's very, very tricky to try to take away any of the carve-outs in the tax code. There's a constituency and a lobby for everyone, and it's been tried before.
But the leader of the Freedom Caucus says on the heels of what happened with health care, he believes tax reform will indeed happen.
I'm optimistic that we'll see a very different process as tax reform comes along.
Are you optimistic that something can get done? It's very complicated.
It is very complicated, but I think we're committed to do that. In tax reform, having it done by August, before we break for August, is not only a worthwhile goal, it's one I think that is achievable.
Meadows says the key to all of this will be to make sure that the Freedom Caucus is included by GOP leadership in the beginning of the discussion process, and that the Freedom Caucus plainly lays out its legislative priorities as well.
We've shared that with the leadership that we need to be involved. And I will say Chairman Brady on the tax reform side has actually been doing a very good job of reaching out to the Freedom Caucus. We've had a number of meetings, and yet we need to make sure that that's more interactive in terms of legislative initiatives.
It's all a work in progress up here on the Hill, and the Freedom Caucus is smack in the middle of it. David Brody, CBN News, Washington.
Pat, do you think they'll be able to pass tax reform and a repeal of health care?
They have no choice. These people are not right-wing fanatics. They really aren't. I mean, Mark Meadows is a wonderful born-again Christian. He's a very successful developer. He's made a lot of money, put up some very high-dollar projects that he's responsible for, and he's a reasonable businessman. These guys know there is no chance that they can go before the voting public without taking care of health care. They have to do it. They promised, they promised, they promised. And if they're viewed as the little band of people who block health care reform, they're all going to lose their seats if they're not careful. So I think they want to get on board. And I believe in terms of the tax reform, we've interviewed Chairman Brady on this program. He has a marvelous plan. His plan of tax reform is so ridiculously simple that everybody ought to be on board. So if all these K Street lobbyists come in they call it Gucci Gulf, if they come in with their Gucci suits and all that stuff, I mean, give them the boot out the door and say, look, we've got to fix this thing for America. And I believe that Brady, the Ways and Means Committee, and the House, that's where those bills should start. And I think the Senate needs to get on board, and we need to get tax reform. That's one of the things that's got to be done, and they say they'll do it before August. Has to be done, but I believe they're right in saying in order to get tax reform, you've got to get the savings out of the health care. And the health care has got to be passed first, but it will be. There's no question it will be. Now, we're going to shift to something else. If you were watching your television, you had a hard time missing it. You and I were horrified to see a passenger ripped from a window seat on an airplane, hauled over the seats behind him, dragged down the corridor of an airplane, his shirt up over his neck, and the man screaming incoherently. It was one of the most sordid episodes that I have ever seen by stupidity in corporate America. And that's what happens when you give an order and you turn it loose to some security guys who don't know from nothing. I mean, it was terrible. And the fallout to United Airlines is dramatic. They're losing a huge amount of money in their stock. People are calling for the resignation of people. The head of the companies apologized. It was awful. Did you see that?
It was really awful. And at first, United defended their procedures, but I don't think they must not have seen the video yet.
Well, I mean, all they have to do is, I mean, what they need is, it's been proposed. You have an auction, okay. You offer $500. The guys say no. They offered $1,000, I think, and the people said no. This man's claimed, I'm a doctor, I've got patients, and you know, if you're the bridesmaid or the maid of honor at a wedding, and you've got to be someplace. Got to be there. There's no amount of money. Or the bride, you got to be there. There's no amount of money.
There's no amount of money, and there's somebody on that plane who would have taken the 500 or the 1,000.
And you keep raising the ante until somebody takes it. I mean, that's very simple. But the reason they claim that they had to get a rest, they had so many crew members that had to get on board that flight so they'd be positioned for the next time around. They would have been better off.
It's always the customer first in business.
You're right. But, you know, they could have chartered a little small jet, flown the jet from wherever they had to go, a short hop, cost them maybe $10,000. It would have been so much simpler.
Much better.
But do they think that way? They don't think smart. And these security guys, they're not paid to be smart. They're paid to be tough. And so they're tough. They said, the order is get him off the plane. Yes, sir. You know, and they're probably ex-military. The general said, take the hill. They go, take the hill.
Well, he did it.
What a horrible example of stupidity. I mean, mass stupidity. John.
Well, more fallout from that, Pat. The doctor who was dragged off the United flight and left bloodied by officers could sue the airline carrier. The London Daily Mail reports Dr. David Dow has issued a statement through two prominent Chicago law firms. He's still undergoing treatment at a Chicago hospital for his injuries. Media reports have revealed that he has a troubled past, including a felony drug conviction and anger management issues. The Louisville Courier-Journal reported he had his medical license suspended for 10 years for illegally prescribing painkillers and that he was sexually involved with a patient who used to work for his practice. But others have pointed out that his past really doesn't matter. He was picked at random from among passengers on board that United flight. Well, the 25th Annual Movie Guide Award ceremony will air this weekend on television. The event highlights uplifting and inspiring entertainment and media. Ephraim Graham brings us a behind-the-scenes look at this year's award show.
Since 1993, Movie Guide has hosted this gala to award people in film and television whose work entertains and inspires. The group works to bridge the gap between the entertainment industry and the traditional family audience.
But this is a really big audience.
Movie Guide offers tips and guidelines for filmmakers and important information to people looking for family-friendly content, something the actor who's hosting this year's event appreciates.
It's funny, I've been following Movie Guide for years. I mean, my oldest daughter is 30. My youngest son is 11. We have 5 kids. I have a 6-year-old grandbaby. We go to Movie Guide because we need to find out what we're about to watch tonight.
CBN is among this year's award nominees.
This has been a lot of fun.
The documentary, Pocahontas, Dove of Peace, is up for the Faith and Freedom Award.
It was originally an assignment from Gordon that mushroomed into a 30-minute documentary.
This year, Movie Guide also honors CBN's founder, Dr. Pat Robertson, with its Lifetime Achievement Award for living and communicating the good news.
It's a great honor, and I really think the credit belongs to media, the Movie Guide. They do such a superb job, and it's a thrill for me to be part of this celebration.
It's also been a big year in entertainment for Dr. Robertson and Regent University, partnering with Hollywood heavyweight actor and filmmaker Corbin Burnson to produce the school's first full-length feature film, In Lawfully Yours. It's only fitting tonight Burnson presents Dr. Robertson with his award.
Tonight we honor Pat for that illumination, for that sharing, that kindness that he has shown to so many people who have crossed his path.
That kindness prompts a standing ovation for a living legend in the world of broadcasting.
Thank you, Corbin. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much. Praise God for his blessing in my life. And I can say, hitherto hath the Lord blessed me. God bless all of you. God bless America. Thank you very much.
Ephraim Graham, CBN News.
The award ceremony occurred earlier this year, but you can watch the entire ceremony on the Reels Network this Sunday at 5 p.m. Eastern. And Pat, congratulations.
Well, thank you. That was a very nice time, and I appreciate Corbin, his nice remarks, and I think Movie Guide does a good job. Ted Baer is he has an analysis. He does spectrographics, or whatever you want to call it, about film tastes. Yeah. So he can go into a film producer and say, look, these are the ones that are making money, these are the ones that are losing money, and look what's happening. The faith films make money and the dirty films lose money. Right. Don't you want to make money? That's what you're there for. So he's swayed a lot of opinion in Hollywood because of that. It's very good. It was kind of a fun thing, I guess. Was it fun?
Yeah, and I think it's amazing that we're getting into the movie business because there's such a hunger out there for wholesome, great entertainment.
You know, Kevin Sorbo is a tremendous guy and a wonderful guy. He did
he's great.
He's one big.
Yeah.
All right. He told me, he said, look, I've got a whole bunch of scripts. I'm looking for some money. I said, well, maybe we've got some money, so how about getting together? So we're talking right now about Regent. I would like Regent University to have a film department where they're making high-quality, faith-based movies that will be inspiration, but of the quality that it would command attention on the screens of America, not just behind the scenes, but out there on the big screens.
Go big or go home, right?
Hey, that's it. And then from there to the home around the world. And I'm working on a project right now. I hope will be successful because why not? I mean, and to have our students participating like they did with Corbin in that Unlawfully Yours, it was a good movie. And the students worked with Corbin and the teachers at Regent.
What a treat for the students.
It is. I mean, hey, we're an education institution, but if our students can learn something and that gives them a leg up, by all means, let's do it.